We checked in on Trump's Thanksgiving dinner, or at least at some point around Thanksgiving, his dinner with Elon Musk and others, bopping to YMCA. Well, he was doing something else on Thanksgiving as well, and that was some social media activity that I want to show you. The first is just strange, but then we get to something far more consequential. So let's start with the less important thing, Trump posting this strange video of his political enemies. A little edit. While you're watching, please do click the subscribe button.
If this turkey tastes half as good as it looks, I think we're all in for a very big treat.
Save the neck for me, Clark.
Okay, Adam.
So as you can imagine, that caused a lot of online discussion and went rather viral because of how strange it was. I'll describe for our podcast listeners, it was a video of a Thanksgiving dinner from a movie that now I'm forgetting the name of, but then edited onto the faces of the characters was all of Trump's enemies. Schumer, Biden was the one cutting the turkey, Vice President Harris, Adam Schiff, AOC, Ilhan Omar, and then when Biden goes to cut the turkey, Trump pops out of it and does his dance. Okay. Then he posts this. Happy Thanksgiving to all, including to the radical left lunatics who have worked so hard to destroy our country, but who have miserably failed and will always fail because their ideas and policies are so hopelessly bad that the great people of our nation just gave a landslide victory to those who want to make America great again. Don't worry, our country will soon be respected, productive, fair, and strong, and you will be more than ever before proud to be an American. By the way, this talking point, remember that we keep hearing that, oh, MAGA must be correct on the facts, must be correct on the morals and the policy because Trump won. And that Democrats suffered such a humiliating defeat that any stances they have must be wrong, even though Trump barely eked out the popular vote, whereas Biden crushed the popular vote in 2020. I say that not because it takes away the fact that Trump won, and he did win an electoral landslide, if you want to call it that, but because the mandate they seem to believe Trump has to do whatever he'd like because the majority of the country is with him is not even true. He didn't even get 50% of the vote. He got a plurality, but not majority. And if they believed that about Trump's victory, that this now means he must be correct and that those who disagree with him must be incorrect, then they'd have to hold that standard to an even more severe extent when it comes to Biden's 2020 victory. Did they? Did they say, oh, we must be wrong because Biden defeated us by a much larger popular vote margin than Trump would go on to? No, they said it was all stolen. Now, we're not going to do that because we're adults and we can handle when we lose elections, but their principle does not stand. Then Trump posted this, which will be the next part of this segment as we continue to explore the goings-on of Trump's trade war, essentially, that he started before he even officially became president. Just had a wonderful conversation with the new president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo. She has agreed to stop migration through Mexico and into the United States, effectively closing our southern border. We also talked about what can be done to stop the massive drug inflow in the United States and also U.S. consumption of these drugs. It was a very productive conversation. Now, the way that Trump characterized this was disputed by Sheinbaum. We'll get to that in a moment, but Trump also posted, Mexico will stop people from going to our southern border effective immediately. This will go a long way towards stopping the illegal invasion of the United States. Thank you. Given that this is being slapped down by the president of Mexico, my sense of this is that, and for the good of the country, even though politically this would be ridiculous, but for the good of the country, I hope Trump is bluffing about these tariffs, because if he actually implements them, we will see price hikes, the very thing that Trump was supposed to do the opposite on. according to people in polls saying, oh, we think Trump's the solution to prices going up. But if he is planning on dropping this and it was just a bluff for leverage, for a negotiating stance, the 25% tariffs on all imports from Canada and from Mexico, and then additional 10% on Chinese imports, then maybe this is what he's setting up. That he's gonna pretend like he's getting concessions that he's not actually getting from Canada and Mexico, so that then he can go, I got everything I needed on immigration issues, which is the reason I was implementing the tariffs, even though when I ran, I was saying the tariffs were for bringing jobs back in the United States, and then I denied that they would cause price spike when they obviously would. But he might be setting up a justification to not actually implement those tariffs on day one, as he said that he would. Because if he does, it's going to be a political nightmare, yes, but more importantly, a people nightmare, a nightmare for Americans in their day-to-day expenses. But Maggie Haberman responded to that post from Trump, sort of baffled because it didn't make much sense given what we know about President Sheinbaum.
Ask you about something that happened a short time ago. Trump posted on social media this. He said, I just had a wonderful conversation with the new president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum. She has agreed to stop migration through Mexico and into the United States, effectively closing our southern border. We also talked about what can be done to stop the massive drug inflow into the United States and also U.S. consumption of these drugs. It was a very productive conversation, end quote. So look, what does it tell you that they had this conversation? What does it tell you that he's, I think, sort of half announcing that the southern border was closed in this conversation?
I have no idea what that actually means, John. I mean, he has made statements like that before when he was president, and it didn't actually amount to the closure of a border. It comes a day after he made some very aggressive tariff threat against Mexico and Canada. And so I think that's probably not a coincidence, although who knows? He's doing these foreign leader calls not in the way that we, have come to expect people do them in transitions, although he is doing them somewhat the way he did in his last transition, where they're unstructured, they're informal, there's not, sort of an intense government record keeper or transition record keeper. So who knows what actually happened in that call? At some point we may find out, but everything with him is the opening bid of a negotiation. And I look at this plus the tariff threat most likely as a combined, push toward Mexico to try to get what he...
And the way that MAGA, the way that Trump talk about the border denotes a lack of understanding for many, or for Trump, an effort to mislead people. It's not an open, closed button. The border's not a door. There are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of policies that relate to immigration at the southern border, and how you tweak those policies, how you coordinate with countries like Mexico and then our northern border, Canada, is a complicated process. It's why Trump, despite claiming things to the contrary, didn't, even by the metrics he cares about, solve the southern border problems. And he is either setting himself up to go, okay, just kidding, I'm not going to do the tariffs because everything got solved before I became president, so I'm awesome, so let's just go ahead and take credit for Biden's economy and things are going to be great. Or he's planning on actually doing this, but I don't know really why he'd be mischaracterizing his conversation, other than my one prediction there. But if he ends up going through with this, his presidency is going to start with a trade war that would be economically disastrous. And more specifically, as we'll keep coming back to, contrary to if he did have a mandate, the mandate that he had, which was a lot of people misunderstood what had caused price increases and blamed it on Biden Harris when actually they were handling it effectively. But this global phenomenon was painful, and they blamed it on the incumbent party, saying Trump can be the one to go in there and stop price increases. And then Trump's big policy, if he actually follows through on it, would be to spike prices with this tariff policy. But here was the reaction from the Mexican president.
A dispute between the president-elect of the U.S. and Mexico's president over a phone call. Who agreed to what and what it may mean for the U.S.-Mexico relationship. Donald Trump brought out some of his best words, for example, wonderful, to describe a conversation with Mexico's Claudia Sheinbaum, ending his Truth Social post by claiming she agreed to, quote, stop migration through Mexico and into the United States. Scheinbaum actually just responded moments ago, and the short version is never, no, not once, did she say anything of the kind. Scheinbaum on X was writing, "We reiterate that Mexico's position is not to close borders, but to build bridges between governments and between peoples."
And as we've seen from the other statements and actions from Scheinbaum, that doesn't mean that undocumented immigration is quote unquote open, but that the approach to the relations between our countries probably shouldn't be threats to do something that Mexico is already trying to do. We've seen the progress, which is why we've seen, for example, 75% drop in border crossings in the last few months under Biden, partly in coordination with the Mexican government. And so in building that bridge, we've seen progress. Trump thinks it's as simple as close, stop immigration. And so then threats work. But in reality, a far stronger path to long-term solutions is thoughtful coordination with one of our allies. Biden did address this tariff issue as follows.
Any thoughts on tariffs in Canada and Mexico that the president-elect is talking about?
I hope he rethinks it. I think it's a counterproductive thing to do. You know, look, one of the things you've heard me say before that we have an unusual situation in America. We're surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and two allies, Mexico and Canada. And the last thing we need to do is begin to screw up those relationships. I think we've got them in a good place. I think by the way, you know, the cooperation with the outgoing president and the incoming president, the illegal crossings are down considerably to what they were back when he was in office. There's a lot more to do, but I just think, I hope they reconsider.
Yeah, I know how much Trump cares about the perceived impact he has on the economy. For example, whenever he inherited Obama's economy after 8 years of recovering from what the last Republican left, but also a bigger economic issue unrelated to Bush necessarily, and then exacerbated there. But we saw recovery, back to a strong economy. Trump inherits it and then takes credit for it. And then the same thing I expected was going to happen here, where Trump would inherit all of the fixed problems that happened under Biden-Harris, not because necessarily all these things were Obama or Biden, but the way that Americans often think about it is like that. And then Trump would take credit for all that, and people would go, oh, see, look, it's because of Trump. But if he messes all that up, you'd think he would go, okay, never mind. I got everything I needed from the country, so I'm not doing the tariffs anymore. But he very well could do that because he doesn't care about logical consistency, but that would not be consistent with what he said on the campaign trail, which is that tariffs aren't just a mechanism by which you threaten countries to get concessions on other issues. For him, it's immigration. But they are the tool to bring jobs back to America. And when you're using them in a limited strategic way, as has been happening under Democratic and Republican administrations, sometimes in ways I agree with, sometimes in ways I disagree with, there are definitely benefits. It's not that all applications of tariffs are horrible, obviously, but it's that slapping these 25% across the board on our two biggest trading partners, and then an increase of 10% on our third biggest trading partner, is inevitably going to do the very thing that Trump was elected to do the opposite of. At least Americans say. I knew it was a bad idea, but other people thought it was a great idea. And so if he were consistent to what he said on the campaign trail, regardless of if he gets concessions, he would just start doing this on all imports from every country to make everything manufactured in the United States, which of course would be a very expensive short-term prospect and long-term prospect, because a lot of things would just be more expensive to be made in the United States. And sometimes that's a trade-off we want to make. But the broad approach he's taking would spike inflation. And so maybe MAG is saying, actually, I'm good with inflation now because I think that in long term it'd be good for this, that, and the other thing. My guess is they won't think that, but Trump will find someone other than himself to blame the price increases on. Let me know. Do you think Trump's actually going to follow through on these massive, massive price hikes? Trumpflation, we'll call it. Or is he going to back off and say that he got everything he wanted when he got nothing, as Scheinbaum clarified, and it was all just a big bluff? You can tell me in the comments. Support the show, get the members only bonus show by clicking that join button below.